It's the year 2024 at the time of this release, meaning it's been 95 years since the stock market crash and the Great Depression officially began in the United States. This is not a history channel, and I'm not here to give you a history lesson about that event. But since it's almost a century since that monumental event, and the ramifications from that event and time period is known by people the world over, I have a simple question for you. If you had the ability to go back to the year 1928 to warn President Hoover of the upcoming economic catastrophe that will occur in 1929, would you? Well, that's what today's episode is about. John is a common man who discovers a time machine in an old abandoned warehouse. He sees an opportunity to change the course of history for the better. His mission: travel back in time to the 1920s to warn President Hoover of the impending Great Depression. That's the intro to the time traveler's legacy, but before getting to the story, I had to do some very light research on Hoover, and while doing that, I learned that President Hoover passed away in 1964. And after a few minutes on the Google, did you know from November 22, 1963 to January 22, 1973, exactly 110 months, in that time span, that 5 either current or former United States presidents' lives expired? JFK on November 22, 1963. Herbert Hoover on October 20, 1964. Dwight Eisenhower on March 28, 1969. Harry Truman on December 26, 1972. And finally, LBJ on January 22, 1973. And to the fact that Hoover's son, Herbert Hoover Jr., passed on July 9, 1969. Add in historical figures like the woman who defined what the expectation is of the modern-day First Lady of the United States, Eleanor Roosevelt, on October 11, 1964. RFK Sr. on June 6, 1968. MLK on April 4, 1968. And lastly, my personal hero, Malcolm X, on February 25, 1965. All that is to say is that the 1960s and early 1970s were just chaotic. Even more than I thought it was. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's finally get to the story.
Chapter 1: Discovery in the Warehouse. The rain poured down in a steady rhythm, cloaking the world in a muted haze. John, a passionate inventor with an insatiable curiosity, wandered through the desolate streets until he stumbled upon an old, dilapidated warehouse. Its weathered exterior suggested a history forgotten by time, yet something about it drew John in. As he pushed the creaking door ajar, the air inside was thick with the scent of dust and decay. He fumbled for a flashlight, its feeble beam revealing a cavernous space filled with discarded remnants of bygone eras, broken machinery, forgotten artifacts, and a peculiar assortment of curious gadgets. Among the relics, one object stood out like a gem in the rough, a time machine, hidden beneath a tattered canvas. Intrigued by the possibilities that this discovery held, John felt a surge of excitement coursing through him. He could scarcely believe his luck. It was as though the universe had conspired to place this extraordinary machine in his path. He ran his fingers over its cold, metallic surface, and as he did, a vision of the past and the future flickered in his mind. Determined to unravel the mysteries of this temporal device, John embarked on an ambitious task: the restoration of the time machine to its former glory. The hours turned into days as he delved into the intricacies of gears, levers, and circuits. Each piece he polished, every wire he reconnected, brought him closer to unlocking the secrets of time travel. The warehouse became his sanctuary, a place where the boundaries of reality blurred, and the distant echoes of forgotten ages whispered in the shadows. As he toiled away, John found himself consumed by the possibilities that lay before him. The concept of rewriting history, of shaping the course of events, fueled his determination. Late into the night, with the hum of the restored machine resonating through the cavernous space, John marveled at the pulsating glow of the time machine's core. He stood back, wiping sweat from his brow, and knew that his life was about to take an extraordinary turn. The time machine, once forgotten and abandoned, now held the potential to transport him through the annals of time. As he gazed upon his creation, John's mind raced with thoughts of the past, the present, and the future. Little did he know that this discovery was the key to a journey that would not only challenge the limits of science but would thrust him into a pivotal role in the unfolding drama of history itself. The adventure had just begun, and the warehouse, once a forgotten relic, now harbored the secrets of time waiting to be unveiled. Chapter 2: A Journey Through Time. The time machine hummed with a rhythmic energy, its glow casting an otherworldly ambience in the dimly lit warehouse. John, fueled by a heady mix of excitement and trepidation, stood before his creation. He had labored tirelessly to restore the forgotten relic, and now, the moment of truth had arrived. As he approached the gleaming apparatus, 1,000 thoughts raced through John's mind. The possibilities were endless, and the weight of responsibility hung in the air. With a steady hand, he adjusted the intricately calibrated dials, each turn resonating with the promise of a journey through time. The machine's hum intensified, drowning out the ambient sounds of the warehouse. The air crackled with an electric charge as John felt the subtle vibrations beneath his fingertips. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the unknown, and with a decisive flick of a switch, the time machine whirred to life. The surroundings blurred into a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes. Time itself seemed to warp and bend as John was enveloped by a disorienting vortex. He felt a strange weightlessness, as if suspended between moments, and glimpses of the past and future flickered in his periphery. And then, as abruptly as it began, the tumultuous journey ceased. The warehouse vanished, replaced by a bustling cityscape bathed in the warm glow of electric lights. John squinted, adjusting to the new surroundings. The sights and sounds of an era long past enveloped him, the lively jazz music, the laughter of flapper-clad women, and the distant murmur of Model T engines. He had arrived in the vibrant era of the Roaring Twenties. John marveled at the energy and vitality of the time, the sense of liberation and exuberance that defined the decade. Tall buildings adorned with dazzling neon lights reached for the sky, and the streets buzzed with the infectious spirit of progress and change. The air was thick with the promise of a new era, and John couldn't help but be captivated by the dynamism of the age. Stepping out of the time machine, John found himself immersed in a world that existed only in history books. He took a moment to soak in the atmosphere, his senses overwhelmed by the sights and sounds of the Roaring Twenties. The adventure had truly begun, and John knew that every step he took in this era would be a brushstroke on the canvas of time, altering the course of history with each passing moment. Chapter 3: The Mission Begins. John emerged from the time machine, his senses adjusting to the sights and sounds of the vibrant Roaring Twenties. The bustling streets of the era enveloped him, a stark contrast to the quiet solitude of the abandoned warehouse. As he navigated through the throngs of people dressed in fashionable flapper attire, John's mission crystallized in his mind: he had to warn President Hoover of the impending Great Depression. His footsteps echoed against the cobblestone streets as he made his way to Washington, D.C., the heart of political power. Determination etched across his face, John contemplated the monumental task that lay ahead. The streets of the capital were alive with the spirit of progress and prosperity, but he knew that beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. Upon reaching the White House, John faced the imposing gates guarded by stern-faced sentinels. He took a deep breath, adjusting his attire to blend with the era, and with unwavering resolve, he approached the guards.
Halt. State your business.
I need to speak with President Hoover. It's a matter of utmost urgency.
President Hoover has a tight schedule. What makes you think he'd want to speak with you?
I have crucial information about the future, something that can alter the course of history. Please, it's imperative that I see him.
The guards exchanged skeptical glances, but John's earnestness caught their attention. After a brief discussion, they allowed him entry, escorting him through the pristine corridors of power until he found himself in the heart of the White House. The office door swung open, revealing President Herbert Hoover engrossed in paperwork. Startled, he looked up as John entered, his face a mix of curiosity and irritation.
What's this about? I have a nation to run.
Mr. President, I come from the future, and I bring a warning. The Great Depression is looming on the horizon, and we must take action to avert catastrophe.
Hoover scoffed, leaning back in his chair, his skepticism apparent.
Time travel? Preposterous. I have advisors who inform me of the economic situation regularly. Why should I believe you?
I understand it's hard to believe, but I've seen the devastation firsthand. Unemployment, poverty, the collapse of the stock market, it's all coming. We need to act now to mitigate the impact.
Hoover's expression shifted from irritation to contemplation, his curiosity piqued.
How can I trust you? What evidence do you have?
I know historical events, Mr. President. I can provide you with details about the future that only someone with first-hand knowledge could possess. We must form a plan to strengthen the economy, create jobs, and regulate the financial sector to prevent the impending disaster.
Hoover's gaze lingered on John, the weight of the information sinking in. After a moment of contemplation, he leaned forward.
All right, let's hear what you have to say. But you better have some convincing arguments.
And so, in the hallowed chambers of power, John began to lay out the intricate details of the future, painting a vivid picture of the challenges ahead and the urgent need for preventative action. The mission had begun, and the fate of a nation hung in the balance. Chapter 4: A Dire Warning. The room was hushed as John, with a solemn intensity, continued to lay out the dire warning to President Hoover. The air was thick with tension, and the weight of the impending economic disaster hung like a specter in the room.
Mr. President, I know this is difficult to believe, but the Great Depression is imminent. Unemployment will skyrocket, businesses will crumble, and the very fabric of our nation will be torn apart.
Hoover leaned forward, skepticism etched across his face, but a glimmer of curiosity shone in his eyes.
How can you be so certain? What evidence do you have?
John reached into a pocket and pulled out a small notebook. Flipping through its worn pages, he began detailing specific events and economic indicators that would precede the looming catastrophe.
Here, look at these predictions. The stock market crash of 1929, the Dust Bowl, the rise of unemployment rates, these are not speculations but historical truths that I have witnessed.
As John spoke, Hoover's initial skepticism began to wane. The evidence presented seemed too accurate to be mere conjecture. The gravity of the situation settled in, and the room felt charged with a sense of urgency.
This is unprecedented. How can we prepare for such a catastrophe?
We need to take proactive steps, Mr. President. We must strengthen the economy by investing in infrastructure, creating jobs programs, and, most importantly, regulating the financial institutions to prevent reckless speculation.
Hoover, a man known for his pragmatism, was now faced with a situation that defied the conventions of his time. He rubbed his temples, contemplating the implications.
The American people won't easily accept such drastic measures. The economy is strong right now. Why should we take such drastic action based on predictions from the future?
Because the strength we see now is fleeting. I've seen the suffering, the desperation. We have the opportunity to change our course, to prevent a calamity that will haunt generations to come. The sacrifices we make now will pale in comparison to the suffering that awaits if we do nothing.
The room fell silent as Hoover absorbed the weight of John's words. The clock on the wall ticked away seconds, each one echoing the urgency of the situation.
Very well, Mr. John. We will assemble a team of economists and experts to assess the situation and develop a plan. But understand this, if your predictions prove false, the consequences will be severe.
John nodded solemnly, knowing the risk he was taking. The die was cast, and the fate of the nation now rested on the decisions made in the coming days. As he left the room, he couldn't shake the feeling that the struggle against time had only just begun. Chapter 5: Preparing for the Storm. President Hoover's office buzzed with activity as John, now entrusted with the grave responsibility of averting economic disaster, set out to assemble a team of advisors and experts. The urgency of the situation demanded swift and decisive action.
John, I've made up my mind. We can't afford to dismiss this warning. I need you to gather the best minds in the country. We have to be prepared for what's coming.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll do everything in my power to ensure we're ready.
With a firm nod, John left the Oval Office and began reaching out to economists, financial experts, and visionaries from various fields. The challenge was not just convincing them of the impending crisis but aligning their diverse perspectives toward a unified strategy.
Dr. Williams, I understand your skepticism, but the evidence is undeniable. We need your expertise to formulate a plan that can withstand the storm.
Dr. Williams, a renowned economist, folded his arms, skepticism etched across his face.
Time travel? Predicting the future? I never thought I'd entertain such notions.
I know it sounds implausible, but look at the data. The stock market crash, the rise in unemployment, it's all there. We have an opportunity to change the course of history.
Convincing each member of the team proved challenging, but slowly, they began to see the urgency in John's plea. The group included economists, policymakers, and even a few forward-thinking industrialists who saw the potential for change. As the team gathered in a conference room, John laid out the dire predictions and the need for immediate, decisive action.
Our first task is to assess the vulnerabilities in the economy. We must develop strategies to stabilize the markets, create jobs, and instill confidence in the American people.
And how do we explain this to the public? We can't just tell them we are preparing for a disaster based on time travel predictions.
Agreed. We need a communication strategy, a narrative that conveys the need for precautionary measures without causing panic. The American people are resilient, but they need guidance.
Days turned into nights as the team worked tirelessly, facing challenges and obstacles at every turn. Political opposition, public skepticism, and the sheer enormity of the task tested their resolve.
We have to push for regulatory reforms, invest in public works projects, and create a safety net for those who will be hit the hardest. It won't be easy, but we have the chance to rewrite history.
As the team wrestled with complex economic models and debated policy implications, a sense of unity began to emerge. They shared a common goal: to mitigate the impending disaster and safeguard the nation's future. Encouraged by their collective determination, they forged ahead, working tirelessly to prepare for the storm that loomed on the horizon. The fate of the nation rested in their hands, and the challenges they faced were only a prelude to the turbulent times ahead. Chapter 6: Moments of Doubt. In the dimly lit conference room, the hum of heated discussions filled the air as the team delved into the intricate details of their plan to avert the impending Great Depression. Despite their collective expertise, moments of doubt began to permeate the atmosphere. John, seated at the head of the table, stared at the intricate graphs and charts spread before him. The weight of the responsibility he bore pressed down on him, the enormity of the task making him question the very essence of his mission.
Can we truly change the course of history? Is this effort worthwhile, or are we merely chasing an illusion?
Dr. Williams, ever the pragmatist, interjected.
John, I respect your conviction, but we are dealing with unprecedented challenges. Predicting the future and altering it are two vastly different things. We are navigating uncharted waters.
The skepticism echoed through the room, and some advisors exchanged uneasy glances. The enormity of the task weighed heavily on their shoulders.
What if our efforts are in vain? What if we're diverting resources from other critical areas for an uncertain outcome?
John, grappling with his own doubts, leaned back in his chair. The room fell into a contemplative silence.
I understand your concerns. This is uncharted territory, and the stakes are high. But we cannot let doubt paralyze us. We have an opportunity to make a difference, and that's a risk worth taking.
As the team continued to refine their strategies, moments of doubt lingered like a shadow. The enormity of the challenge ahead, the fear of failure, and the uncertainty of their unconventional methods gnawed at their resolve. Late into the night, the doubts surfaced once again as John stared out of the window, the city below obscured by the darkness.
Can one person truly change the course of history? Am I fooling myself, believing I can alter the fate of an entire nation?
The weight of the responsibility settled on John's shoulders like an insurmountable burden. The doubts lingered, casting a pall over the room and threatening to derail the very foundation of their mission. As dawn broke and the team reconvened, there was a collective understanding that doubt was a natural companion on their unprecedented journey. The challenges were immense, but their commitment to trying, to pushing against the limits of what was deemed possible, became the driving force that propelled them forward. The journey to rewrite history was fraught with uncertainty, but the moments of doubt only strengthened their resolve to confront the storm on the horizon, for they carried with them the unwavering belief that even in the face of uncertainty, actions could shape destiny. Chapter 7: The Crash. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the city, a sense of foreboding hung in the air. The stock market, once a symbol of prosperity, now teetered on the edge of a precipice. The day of reckoning arrived, sending shockwaves through the nation. John and his team huddled around a radio in the dimly lit conference room, the crackling voice delivering the grim news.
We repeat, the stock market has crashed. Panic has erupted on Wall Street, and the effects are rippling across the nation. The Great Depression has begun.
The words echoed through the room, a heavy silence settling in as the magnitude of the crisis unfolded.
This is what we've been preparing for. Now, more than ever, we need to act swiftly and decisively.
The team, their faces etched with determination, sprung into action. Phone lines buzzed with urgent calls, and the once steady hum of conversation became a frantic symphony of voices. The country was plunging into chaos, and the team knew that their plans were now a lifeline for a drowning nation.
The banks are closing their doors. People are panicking. We need to restore confidence in the financial system immediately.
Activate the emergency measures. We'll inject capital into the banks to stabilize them. We can't afford a complete collapse of the financial sector.
As the night wore on, the team worked tirelessly to implement their strategies. Emergency legislation was drafted, and messages of reassurance were crafted to calm the fears of the American people.
It's not just about the banks. Unemployment is rising rapidly. We need to expedite the jobs programs to provide immediate relief.
Agreed. We'll redirect funds to public works projects, creating jobs and revitalizing the economy. We have to act on multiple fronts.
Amidst the chaos, the team faced numerous challenges. Political opposition, public unrest, and the sheer scale of the crisis tested their resolve. Yet, in the midst of adversity, they found moments of triumph. As dawn broke, John and his team witnessed the initial impact of their efforts. Banks that would have otherwise collapsed remained afloat, and public works projects began providing employment. The storm was still raging, but the seeds of resilience had been planted.
This is just the beginning. We can't let up. We have to stay ahead of the crisis and adapt our strategies as needed.
As dawn broke, John and his team witnessed the initial impact of their efforts. Banks that would have otherwise collapsed remained afloat, and public works projects began providing employment. The storm was still raging, but the seeds of resilience had been planted. Exhausted but resolute, they gazed out over a city gripped by uncertainty. The crash had marked the beginning of a long and arduous journey, but the team remained committed to steering the nation through the tempest of the Great Depression, their collective determination shining through the darkness. Chapter 8, Trials and Triumphs. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. The Great Depression tightened its grip on the nation, but amidst the despair, John and his team found themselves witnessing the indomitable spirit of the American people. In the heart of communities, where the effects of the economic downturn were felt most acutely, John saw a resilience that defied the harsh realities of the time. Families huddled together, sharing what little they had, and communities organized grassroots efforts to provide support where the government's resources fell short.
The people are the backbone of this nation. If we can tap into that resilience, we might weather this storm yet.
Trials and setbacks punctuated their journey. Unemployment rates soared despite their efforts, and protests echoed through the streets. The weight of their responsibility bore heavily on John and his team.
Our efforts don't seem to be enough. The people are suffering and they are losing faith in our ability to make a difference.
We can't lose hope. We knew this wouldn't be easy. We have to adapt our strategies, learn from our mistakes, and find new ways to provide relief.
The team faced the harsh reality that not every plan would yield the desired results. They revisited their approach, forging alliances with civic organizations and leveraging the resilience of local communities.
Perhaps we need a grassroots movement. If we empower communities to take charge of their own destinies, we might see a more significant impact.
That's a sound approach. Let's empower local leaders and communities. We need to tap into the collective strength of the American people.
As the team adapted their strategies, a shift occurred. Small victories emerged, communities revitalized, local economies buoyed by grassroots initiatives, and a renewed sense of purpose among the people.
We're making a difference, even if it's one community at a time. Our journey is a marathon, not a sprint. We'll face setbacks, but we'll keep adapting, learning, and pushing forward.
Amidst the trials, moments of triumph unfolded. The American people, inspired by the resilience of their neighbors, began to rebuild their lives. The team, too, found solace in these small victories, knowing that they were making a tangible impact on the lives of those they sought to help. The chapter concluded with a renewed sense of purpose. The journey through the Great Depression was far from over, but the trials and triumphs had forged a resilience within John and his team. As they faced the uncertainties of the future, they took comfort in the small victories that illuminated the path forward. Chapter 9, A Changed Future. As the clouds of the Great Depression began to lift, a sense of transformation swept through the nation. The resilience of the American people, coupled with the strategic interventions led by John and his team, had ushered in a changed future. The scars of the past remained, but so too did the indomitable spirit of a nation that had weathered the storm. John stood on a bustling street, once again gazing at the cityscape that had witnessed the darkest days of the Depression. The sounds of optimism filled the air, children playing, vendors hawking their goods, and a general sense of purpose that had replaced the despair of yesteryear.
We've come a long way. The road was fraught with challenges, but the strength of the American people prevailed.
In the quiet moments of reflection, John looked back on the sacrifices made, the battles fought, and the lives forever changed by their intervention. The scars of the Great Depression were still visible, but the landscape of the future had shifted. A town hall meeting was convened, a symbol of the collaborative spirit that had emerged. Local leaders, once burdened by the weight of economic uncertainty, now spoke of revitalized communities, increased employment, and a shared vision for a brighter future.
We owe a debt of gratitude to those who stood with us during our darkest days. Together, we've built a foundation for a more resilient America.
John, though humbled by the accolades, knew that the journey had come at a cost. The scars of the past were etched not only on the nation's landscape but on the hearts of those who had fought to change its course.
John, we did it. The impact of our efforts will be felt for generations to come.
It's a victory for the American people. We provided the tools, but they were the ones who rebuilt their communities. The scars will remain, but so too will the strength that emerged from the adversity.
The chapter continued with a series of vignettes showcasing the changed future. Factories once silent were now buzzing with activity, families who had faced eviction now had roofs over their heads, and the once ailing economy showed signs of renewal. John, though proud of the accomplishments, couldn't shake the weight of the sacrifices made. The sleepless nights, the impassioned debates, and the uncertainty that had hung over each decision weighed on him.
We changed the future, but not without cost. The scars are a reminder of the battles fought. We've averted a larger catastrophe, but it's essential we don't forget the lessons learned.
As the chapter drew to a close, John and his team faced the changed future with a mix of pride and contemplation. The scars of the Great Depression remained, but so did the strength that emerged from the crucible of adversity. The nation had weathered the storm and emerged on the other side, forever changed. Chapter 10, Return to the Present. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows in the quiet room, John stood before the time machine. The moment he had both anticipated and dreaded had arrived. The mission that had transported him through the annals of time, rewriting history to avert a catastrophic future, was now complete.
Thank you, all of you. We faced challenges that seemed insurmountable, but together, we made a difference. The resilience of the American people prevailed, and the future is brighter because of your dedication.
The team nodded, a shared understanding that their journey had been both extraordinary and transformative.
It's been an honor, John. The world you're returning to is vastly different from the one you left behind.
I can hardly imagine. But I know that the changes we've made, the lessons we've learned, will resonate through the ages.
As John stepped into the time machine, the room seemed to pulse with a quiet energy. He glanced back at the people who had become more than colleagues, they were comrades in a mission that transcended time itself.
This isn't goodbye. It's a until we meet again.
With a final nod, John adjusted the dials, and the time machine whirred to life. The room blurred, the familiar sensations of temporal displacement enveloping him. As he hurtled through the corridors of time, John contemplated the lessons learned and the friendships forged. The journey had been more than a mission, it had been a crucible of growth and discovery. The weight of responsibility had been a burden, but it had also been a catalyst for change. The time machine slowed, bringing John back to the present day. As he stepped out, the room was as he had left it, the familiar sights and sounds grounding him in the reality he once knew.
The past has been rewritten, and the future reshaped. I carry the lessons with me, a testament to what can be achieved when people unite for a common purpose.
As John emerged from the room, he noticed the subtle changes around him. The world he had left behind was indeed transformed. The once familiar landmarks bore the echoes of a past that had been altered. In the distance, the cityscape glittered with the promise of a new era. John, carrying the memories of a journey that defied the constraints of time, took a deep breath, ready to embrace the present that had been shaped by the lessons of the past. The chapter concluded with John, standing amidst the echoes of history, contemplating the profound impact of his journey. The time machine, now silent, stood as a testament to the extraordinary mission that had reshaped the course of time itself. Epilogue, a legacy of hope. In the quiet solitude of his study, John sat amidst a collection of artifacts from a journey that transcended the boundaries of time. The time machine, now dormant, stood as a silent witness to the extraordinary mission that had defined his existence. As he gazed at the familiar contours of the room, a wave of nostalgia washed over him.
A journey through time, rewriting history itself. It feels like a dream, yet the changes are tangible.
The world around him bore the imprints of a past that had been reshaped, the present a testament to the resilience of those who had weathered the storm of the Great Depression. John's actions, coupled with the indomitable spirit of the American people, had woven a tapestry of hope and transformation. The streets outside were alive with the hustle and bustle of a society shaped by lessons learned from the past. The buildings, once haunted by the shadows of economic collapse, now stood tall as symbols of resilience and renewal. John's gaze shifted to a framed photograph on his desk. A group picture of the team that had embarked on the extraordinary mission. Their faces, frozen in a moment of shared purpose, reflected the trials and triumphs of a journey that had redefined history.
We faced skepticism, doubt, and insurmountable challenges. Yet, together, we made a difference. The American people, fueled by their strength and determination, reshaped their destiny.
The legacy of their efforts echoed in policy reforms, economic stability, and a society that had learned to weather storms with collective strength. John's mission had left an indelible mark on the pages of history. A knock on the door interrupted his reverie. It was a young journalist, eager to capture the essence of a man whose story had become legend.
Mr. John, how does it feel to know that your actions have left a lasting legacy on the world?
It's not about me, it's about the power of collective action. Individuals, no matter where they are in time, can make a difference. The lessons of the past should inspire us to shape a better future.
As the journalist left, John stood by the window, gazing at the transformed world beyond. The legacy of hope and resilience had become a beacon for future generations. The lessons learned from the Great Depression, coupled with the extraordinary journey through time, had become a guiding light for a world navigating the complexities of the present. The epilogue concluded with John, his gaze fixed on the horizon, contemplating the profound impact of his journey. The legacy of hope he had helped forge was a testament to the enduring belief that individuals, driven by a shared vision, could shape the world for the better.
So what are your thoughts on this story? If you could go back in time to warn President Hoover of the upcoming Great Depression, how would you do it? I'm very interested in hearing your thoughts. Before saying goodbye for now, I'm letting you know that John's time travel adventures will continue. Instead of traveling to the early 20th century, he will be going further in the past for another adventure. If you really sit back and think about it, you'll know exactly where the next volume will go. It's going to be a while before it's released, so make sure you like, subscribe, and click the bell for notifications to stay up to date with Plot Weave. Make sure you check out my apparel site, justtextclothing.com, to buy some tees. It'll make uploading here on Plot Weave that much easier and faster. Okay, that's all I got to say for now. See you in the future.